right, so first live stream, just testing everything out, seeing how everything is. All right, so I was gonna react to a bunch of videos, um, but yeah, how's everybody doing? Hope you're well. This is somewhat of a test. We'll see how this goes, um, and perhaps I'll be reacting to more things in the future. That said, I do have a Twitch as well, which is at D the Brave. Um, Trying to decide where I want to stream, either there or on YouTube, or maybe somehow find a way to do both. But yeah, let's go. First video is called "The Pandemic Never Ended." All right, let me just
So I
refresh it.
thought that after enough time passes, eventually things would go back to the way that they were before 2020. But slowly I've been realizing that a lot of what started in 2020 still hasn't ended half a decade later. This isn't a complaint because complaining.
Yeah, with the pandemic, I do feel like a lot of people feel that way, where things haven't been the same since.
Does absolutely nothing for anybody, especially with COVID too. It's like the one thing that we all went through together. So to be like, oh, I got screwed out of my best years of college or my last year of high school or whatever it is, it's pointless to complain because everyone got screwed in one way or another. So we're not victim maxing today. We're just gonna acknowledge the truth that things have changed, and I don't think that they're gonna go back to normal. There is a new normal, basically. So the most obvious leftover from
I mean, there were some people that got the easier jobs, if you will, um, higher paying jobs. So there was that. But outside of that, yeah. All right, let me just have a quick check here. Okay. Yeah, bear with me. As I said, this is first time I'm streaming on YouTube, so it does seem like there's some things I need to change. Let's see if I can change them on the fly. Okay, let's see, that should be better now. Okay, yeah, seems like it's a lot better now. All right, let's continue on with it then.
twenty 20. Home maxing, with working from home and just having to be at home all the time, it was mandatory then. And at first, my friends and I, we were like, this is awesome. Like, we couldn't believe the luck that we had. Because I was still in college at this point, and for the life of me, I could not pass statistics, dude. Like, this was during the semester that COVID hit. I was about to fail that class. And one of my friends, he's like, yo, there's this kid from Russia I found on Telegram somewhere in Eastern Europe that will take tests for you. So now we're taking tests at home. I'm like, shit, this could work for me. Because look, not only was I a moron in 2020, but I was also just a degenerate. So I do not condone this at all. If this was today, I probably would have just studied more. But the fact that this was possible is going to prove my point, right? So I said, whatever, fine. I guess this kid Dennis is taking my stats final. I paid him $50 and I said, please, please, please don't mess this up, dude. And he didn't. He passed it with a perfect score. But I remember being at home, I get an email. I'll never forget. My stomach dropped.
I wonder how that works because, as far as I'm aware, when you do like a lot of like formal online testing, what they do, they obviously they get you to put your camera on, so they check that you are who you say you are. They kind of have a look at the environment, so the room you're in, make sure there's no like material that um, can allow you to cheat in any way. Um, what else? Sometimes they'll want you to do a kind of super quick screen share. That one is less common. Um, that would depend on the methodology of the test in terms of whether it's done on the computer or whether it's done like on paper or what you will. Because a lot of although the tests are conducted online, you actually do them on paper. Yeah.
Reading this email, the professor was like, there is simply no way that this is your work and you were able to get a perfect score using the work that you had showed. And I didn't realize this dude Dennis was a genius. And so when he was showing his work, it was with all these crazy strategies and techniques that we had never learned. And my dumbass, who was doing terribly beforehand, definitely was not capable of doing, right? So she was like, you're gonna have to redo the final, but I'm gonna be watching you on Zoom the entire time. The way it worked back then, so she would email the test, and then she would watch me print it out and write on it, and then I'd have to like fax it back to her. So I
Yeah.
said right before, I was like, bro, Dennis, we're gonna have to do this again, bro. The second this hits my email, I'm swinging you the test. You got to send it back in exactly 90 minutes and use simpler math this time, buddy. Like maybe get a question wrong or something, right?
I'm wondering how they had him do it the first time round because, as far as was aware, generally all formal testing is done this way or a similar way. So for them not to just be in a situation where somebody else can do the test for you, that's, I don't know.
I sat there for 90 minutes during COVID. She's watching me scribble my pencil. I'm like doodling on a blank piece of paper, pretending to take this test. Long story short, my boy Dennis clutched up again, got another perfect score, sent it right at the 90-minute mark. She had to apologize to me, right? And like I said, honestly, this is something I feel terrible about now. Like I was a moron who was literally wasting my education like a rat. The reason I tell this story is, one, because it's pretty funny, but two, because this was the first time you could get away with something like this. This at-home stuff starts here, right? And I think learning and growing as a human is not possible.
Yeah, I think a lot of people cheated their way through a lot of stuff, especially during that period, because a lot of things were moving to being done at home, and it was done kind of in this very like half-assed, like temporary kind of way of doing it as well. Um, Things are getting a lot more formalized now, but there was a period of, a couple or a few years of where it was a bit of a funny that he's showing the footage, but kind of cowboy land with this stuff. Um, but even then, most formal testing was quite rigorous in the way that they checked everything beforehand, um, to make it very difficult to almost impossible for somebody else to do tests for you. So yeah, but yeah, it just shows. Personally, I made a mistake with this actually in my life, which is that I did everything fairly and by the book. As I got older, I realized that perhaps people and organizations kind of expect you to cheat a little bit on things sometimes.
Home. right? And I'm gonna get to this in more
Wish I knew
detail,
that
but there's a
earlier.
reason for thousands of years, humans go places to learn, they go places to work. So for the first time, now we're all at home. And I remember at the time, I thought this was just gonna be like a month or two thing, like the perfect amount of time for me to pass my classes and then go back to normal. I didn't realize that this was the start of a new normal. Even after we went back to school, basically all my classes were online, and all of a sudden, college is over, and I'm like, damn, did I just get scammed? I'm not sure I really learned anything. And then you fast forward to 2022, I land my first corporate job just to realize, oh shit, I still don't have to go in to the office. And again, my initial reaction and that of like a lot of my friends was, wow, are we lucky? Like, what is this timeline where we're getting paid while also chilling at the crib? But then quickly you realize that this sucks too. Waking up, you open a laptop, you sit on your ass all day. It might sound like a luxury at first, but I promise you it's a curse. You eat, sleep, work, and relax in the same spot all day. At least in prison, you get to walk around the courtyard for a little bit, chop it up with the other inmates. Being at home is supposed to be great, right? After a long day of work and being out, you come back. There's nothing better than being at home. And if you've ever talked to someone who's been working from home this entire time, there's something off. And you'll know what I'm talking about. It's like you're talking to ChatGPT. You're having a conversation, but it does not feel like a human one. And it makes too much sense, bro. Like, there's days, and I really try to avoid this, but where you just end up stuck in the crib all day. Like, whether you're sick or, when I used to work from home, there would be days where I wouldn't leave the entire day. And you finally get outside, you'll feel weird. You feel like awkward and disconnected from everyone else. And it's just human nature. Like, we're social creatures. So all this home maxing goes against our nature. We can work from home, Zoom, blah, blah, blah. It's not the same as going out into the world and interacting with the world and with people every day. So
Let me know what you think in the comments about this whole working from home thing, because I do feel like perhaps a hybrid working situation is the best way. I've personally felt like a 4 day work week is the way to go. Um, so you have 4 days on, 3 days off. So adding an extra day to the weekend so that you're fully rested. Um, I would even, in that case, normalize perhaps instead of a typical 9 to 5, normalize like a 9 to 6 as kind of like the standard um, working day. So extend the hours when you do work, but add an extra day off. I don't know. And perhaps make it so that 2 of the days that you are working are from home, and then 2 would be from the office or some sort of formal office-like environment. As I said, let me know what you think in the
I mean, that used
comments.
to just be normal, right? They used to hold virtual happy hours at my old job, and I remember sitting there being like, this might be the saddest I have ever been in my entire life, right? Zoom will never equal a social interaction. Going into work and talking to someone is so different than seeing someone face to face while you got your boxers on, after you just woke up. It's the same way that school over, Zoom was a joke. And let's be honest here, this is not pushing society forward in any way. If anything, it's stunting people. This idea of being at home all the time was something that didn't really exist before COVID. And it's just crazy to me that 5 years later, like, people are still swearing by it. And I get it. Like, it's easy, it's convenient, and cheap to be at home, right? And there'd be times I go into the office and I'm just hearing people yap about things, and I'm like, damn, like, this kind of sucks too. But spending 90% of your life at home is just speed running depression, speed running the grave, right? It's like, since COVID, this has become so normalized. And, I got a lot of
I somewhat agree, but at the same time, no. What you do realize as well is that in these office-based or corporate jobs, you are basically sitting in a box all the time. You're sitting in a room. So whether it's your own room or another room, you know, how much of a difference is there? Obviously, with this home working style, you have the added thing of you're bringing your work into your home, but I don't know.
Comments where people are like, "Yeah, but staying home is free, bro," and it's like that is true. Everything is super expensive now, and I'm gonna get to that. But going outside for a walk is free too, also, right? Like that excuse doesn't really make sense. Like I've home maxed, and since COVID, it's almost like they made it so easy to be at home and just consume at the crib. But like 5 years later, like you need to be outside. You need to be grass maxing. You know what I mean? Like go for a walk, just get outside. It's so easy to let go and just like stay inside and watch shit. And it's like it's almost like that's what they want you to do.
Fancy new razor? Arriving today with Prime.
Damn man, it
That's off your
works.
mind? So now you can worry if...
It is so easy to do that, right? And this is probably the scariest realization that I've had. We were all at home during the pandemic, so it naturally made sense that we were all going to start consuming way more content. Like it made sense to just drown in content, whether podcasts, YouTube, TikTok, anything to distract you from the fact that your life was paused. During COVID, for the first time ever, I started listening to podcasts, and I didn't even realize it at the time. They probably appealed to me because they were like compensating for the conversations that I was no longer having in real life, which makes me dumb sad to think about, but that's probably why they were appealing. Like besides my family who are now driving me nuts and those, Warzone sessions with the bros, I was not having a ton of conversations. No one was. We couldn't. But I realized a few years later, and the pandemic is done now, I would be at work, I'd be walking somewhere, and I'm still listening to a podcast in the background or some type of YouTube video or something at all times. And after doing it for so long, all of a sudden it felt weird to not be listening, to not be consuming. It's like boredom became something I needed to avoid. And that feeling for me really got, amplified during COVID, that need to listen to something at all times, like whether doing chores, working out.
It is actually quite interesting because I myself, oh, my hair's a mess. Um, I noticed this about myself, like maybe a month ago, where it never used to be the case before, but in recent times, since COVID, you kind of feel like you gotta have something constantly that you're kind of tuned into.
Out walking around. And I've touched on this before, so I won't go, too OD, but what I was doing and what I think a lot of people are doing is just muting themselves. Just listening to other people yap all day. You might be doing this right now with with my video, right? But I had to relearn how to just sit with my own thoughts and do things without consuming, right? I didn't realize this huge shift to this constant consumption was going to stay after we were all, out of lockdown. But it has, and it's actually gotten worse. Like, I had personally some crazy shit happen to me between 2020 and now, and that's the only reason that I even came to this realization in the first place. Like, had that not happened, I would probably still be listening to Rogan yap about something that I don't even care about instead of thinking about my own shit and just sitting down with my own thoughts all the time, right? You look around on the subway, the bus, the streets, everyone's either got their necks craned, watching something, or their noise canceling headphones on, or both. Like next time you're out in public.
Yeah, I think everybody had that. Well, maybe not everybody, but a lot of people have been through that kind of Joe Rogan phase where they're kind of like listening to or watching those podcasts. I had it for like good few years. Funnily enough, I would say it was the few years just before he went to what was it, Spotify, I think it was. Um, but he had some more interesting people back then. I feel like I don't know, but then again, I haven't really um, followed Joe Rogan as much in recent years, just because I feel like he's kind of um, perhaps he always was, but nowadays, especially, he feels like more, I don't want to say a plant because that would, you know, say that he was kind of an industry plant from the get go, but perhaps, you know, I don't know, he became that way. I don't know.
public, look around, dude. It's actually nuts. Even the old people are hooked now, right? Back in the day, they would be the ones who were present, and it was like, oh, at least they're, in the moment. But now they're glued to the screens too. And yeah, this was starting pre-COVID, but I can say with hundo P confidence, it was accelerated after. And now, 5 years later, it just feels like people are losing themselves at this point. The impact of the internet on the behavior of the human race is going to be taught in schools one day, like very shortly, right? And there's a whole new breed of human that I like to call the line waiters. And these are the people who just cannot wait to stand in line for something. Like, it kind of blows my mind. And if you're in a big city, you know exactly what I'm talking about. For example, there's this halal truck in Midtown. It went viral during COVID, of course.
Oh my God, I've noticed this as well. I've seen this with like some smaller restaurants, especially cafes in the city that I'm in, and yeah, some bars as well. Though it's kind of strange because like 95% of bars are just relatively quiet, and then you'll have the few that are just like, will have the queue going outside. And same can be said for a lot of cafes and the such as well. Um, for me personally, I see a long queue. I'm 9 out of 10 times I am not joining that queue. I'm just not interested. I don't like standing in queues, but definitely has become more common since the pandemic.
And to this day, there's lines around the block for this halal truck. For those of you who don't know, there are halal trucks on every other block in the city, including across the street from this one, and it has no line, right? But these people wait in hours for that truck because that's the one that they saw on their phone. There was this awesome Italian deli I used to go to. It was around forever. Some girl made a TikTok about it, and now it's no longer possible for me to go there because every time I walk past it, there's a line around the block, dude. And I thought this obsession, this need to get into a line and try the latest thing that you might have saw on the internet was a product of the lockdown, but I was so wrong. And this channel is basically just me realizing that I was wrong over and over. But the influence that the internet has had on people's decision making, whether that's where to go, what to do, how to act, has gotten so much more intense since 2020, and I thought it would get better. It's getting worse, right? And it was honestly stupid.
Yeah, I've noticed there's this whole like phenomenon where you have these social media folk trying to make things look like genuine, like oh, I found this place, but really like probably like 3/4 of the time it's just fake. It's just completely fabricated. Um, their marketing team decided to contact the social media person, and they go there, they get paid, they make a video about a certain place, then they get increased foot traffic. So it's more often than not, it's a rigged situation. And the benefit with these social media types of people is it looks more authentic, so people feel like, oh yeah, this person that we watched several videos of before in the past, they went there and vouched for this place, so they keep going there.
Me to think that short form content wasn't here to stay and just associate it with 2020, like especially if you follow the money and saw what Facebook was doing. Anytime you want to know what the next thing that's gonna cook us is, just look at what Facebook's doing, right? But I don't know, I didn't think it would get this bad. Like, a study came out recently, it was like short form content is worse for your brain and your decision making processes than drinking is, which is crazy, right? So my question is, when do they drop some laws or something to protect not just the kids, but like our asses too as grown adults? And speaking of internet influence, dude, like if you look at live streaming and how it exploded in 2020, again, that made sense. I've never been the type to watch a live stream, but I get why kids who are stuck in the house flock towards it at that time, right? But the fact that it's not only this huge thing, but it's actually even bigger now is crazy.
Yeah, during
like the
COVID,
whole
it's
simulating
quite
conversations
natural.
thing that I was doing with podcasts during lockdowns, like that's what these kids are doing now with these live streamers. But the only difference, there's two differences. One, the lockdown is over, and two, these kids are in deep parasocial relationships. Like, they're on Twitter talking about what these kids are doing, who their crushes are. It's like scary, dude. Like I swear I need to delete Twitter because the fact that I even see this as a 25-year-old man is kind of ridiculous. But there's always like some new kid in a mansion, and the tweet will have 1 million views, and everyone's talking about this kid like they know him.
Oh
I don't know.
God,
It's just scary to
yeah,
me, dude. The whole live streaming thing
it's weird.
is scary. I don't even know where that one's gonna go. And speaking of not knowing where this is gonna
It's
go,
just these total
dating and meeting
randoms.
people you want to date obviously changed in 2020. But what I
And
didn't
again,
know,
I do feel like a lot of them are industry plants. A lot of these streamers, they're just set up by, you know, either wealthy benefactors or like wealthy parents who fund them and kind of market them, and because it just, I don't know, maybe I'm just not getting to it, and I'm too old for it, but yeah,
I made a whole video about this. You can look at the charts. It's
maybe I
a
just don't
drastic
get it.
change. But what I didn't know was that this change was here to stay. I didn't realize I'd still be swiping,
Ads, or aids as I like to call them.
trying to play the game, the try-harding Hinge 5 years later. You know what I mean? To the point where now, 2025, 60% of couples meet online, which is now the majority is meeting online, which is crazy. If you rewind 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it's just a totally different world. And I think, like, this sucks, honestly. I talked about it already. You have the total free will to either participate in it or not. But I think, its place in our world kind of represents a...
I'm sure I'll talk about this again at some point, but I think that for the vast majority of men, like 99% of men, should stay out of online dating. Really, all men should. If I could get all men to boycott, I would, because it doesn't really benefit anybody. Um, but especially the vast majority, like the 98, 99% of men, because you've essentially got an app where you've got a few men who are enjoying the company of a majority of women, if that makes sense. So what you'll find is women sharing a few men. So a lot of women sharing a few men, and then they go online and then they complain about it, and then they say, "Oh, all men are this, all men are that." But uh, they're finding these men online and they're going for the cream of the crop. At least looks wise, usually, because that's what online dating is. You're swiping left or right based on um, the attractiveness of the person, their picture. I'd hazard a guess comfortably more than half, I think substantially more than that, of people don't actually look at any of the dating profiles. They just pick based on the pictures. And I'd probably say that the majority of that majority probably doesn't even go beyond the first picture. I don't know. Just some thoughts.
a shift to online, a shift to like self-image problems. There's like a bunch of problems. I think overall it's a negative, right? And it really ramped up during COVID, obviously, right? And then the next is just like money-wise, dude. Everyone knows 2020 was a weird-ass time financially. I remember in New York, heads were calling it the bandemic because, between like stimmy checks, the PPP loans people were getting, and the fact that no one was spending money, all of a sudden everyone had bread. I remember when the market tanked, being like, oh shit, like this is about to be so bad. But then weirdly, it wasn't. And then like all of a sudden, it was booming. And to this day, the stock market has been doing very well.
Yeah, the stock market has been out of touch with the actual, what I'd call the real economy, um, for quite a while. because you've essentially got the tech sector and the financial services, which are um, experiencing booms, but the most other industries are not. At least when you're looking at, the US, UK, Canada, kind of like the Anglosphere.
And to me, this was the start of this huge disconnect between the market and what's actually going on in our country and in our world. And more importantly, to me, this was the start of inflation. And I don't know, maybe I was just shot before, but I had never noticed inflation prior to 2020. Like, the prices of things, for the most part, made sense to me. But now, 5 years later, inflation is like the only thing I can notice. At first, it was like, all right,
Yeah, because when it's below, comfortably below 5% for everything a year, it's not really obvious, you know. So if one year you're getting something for $1 or a pound or a euro, and then the next year you're getting it for, you know, 3, 4, 5 cents or pence over, then you do notice it just about, but it's more of a slight annoyance, you know. But when you have something and it's like, say, like $1, and then, oh, the next year it's $1.20 or a pound 20, then obviously that keeps going, and then the following year you're looking at the same thing that you got a couple of years ago for $1. It's $1.50 or a pound 50.
once the pandemic is over, it'll go back to normal. It's like, all right, once this geriatric dude is out of office, it'll go back to normal. And now, 5 years later, it's like, I don't think it's going back to normal. Like, I don't see an end in sight here. Every day, the price of something new will blow my mind. Whether that's like rent or, a coffee from the deli, everything is more expensive, bro. And when those bars, those clubs finally reopen, the prices of those nights out, all of a sudden, were not worth it anymore. It was just like, everything is more expensive, dude. And I'm no, economics expert, right? But the government clearly started botching something in 2020, and they haven't been able to fix it. And it doesn't seem like it's going to get any better. And that brings me to my next point. We're talking about the government.
Well, are they botching it or are they doing it on purpose?
There's always been conspiracy theories, but after COVID, we have now entered a new level of distrust. And there's this mistrust not just in the government, but in everything and everyone, which sucks, man, because looking at
And AI doesn't help. Like the amount of, like, today in the morning I had a quick swipe through TikTok, and the amount of just AI slop on it, and you just know some 65-year-old, 70-year-old, 80-year-old geriatric, like, old ladies, like they're like, like surprised and impressed by some nonsense that she sees in the video. Probably goes to her family and tells, oh wow, look at this is crazy. And then probably the kids are like, oh grand, this is like, this is AI nonsense slop.
the world through that lens, where you trust no one and you assume the worst out of everyone and everything, is not healthy, right? It's honestly miserable, but it's the reality for people now more than ever. Like, it's almost like a protective measure, and the government hasn't, done itself any favors. Obviously, during COVID, the way that the vaccine was rolled out was a mess. I'm not saying they were putting trackers in it or whatever, like the conspiracy is, but I'm just saying it didn't, assure the population well during that time. That's an understatement, right? And then now it's like 5 years later, this Epstein thing is just ridiculous, right? It's like, these are now not even conspiracy theories. These are just like the government botching, right? And I've never been a huge conspiracy guy. I mean, I grew up in New York post 9/11, right? And people are always talking about, 9/11, 9/11. It's like, that one always bothered me because, there was a bunch of people that would have been in my life had they not died on that day, right? And that's probably why I've never been a conspiracy guy or put much, time or effort into, because that always bothered me. I just know that there was no way. I don't know. I'm not even gonna get into that right now, right? But now, that used to be the big one. Now everything is a conspiracy. You can't drop a deuce without some type of ulterior motive onto why you did it, right? It's not just with the government. As a whole, we move around and assume the worst out of everybody these days. And I catch myself doing it all the time. I'm like caught off guard when someone is nice to me. That's not really a good way to live life. You should actually trust.
Yeah, there is a balance to things. I think one of the things with that is this person that's making the video is maturing, and that's something that inevitably happens. You become more aware as you mature, but at the same time, it is a balance. You got to be careful not to become overly cynical and like almost kind of like autistic with with how you look at things, and how in depth you look at certain things and at certain people and what they do, you know, not to
People and
get
assume
too
the best out of
neurotic,
people until they give you a reason
because
to
it
not
doesn't benefit
trust
you
them. But
anyway.
it's hard these days, especially now. And I think COVID really ramped that up, right? And another thing, it's like,
Well, right now we have more access to information and events that are happening around the world more than ever in history. So that's the thing, and we're seeing a lot of the bad things that go on in the world, a lot of the injustices that happen around the world, and yeah, that's what happens.
pre-COVID,
Like the whole like Charlie Kirk thing, right? We weren't supposed to see that. In the past, there would be some people that would not have seen um, that type of incident or murder happen in front of their eyes for their whole lives, you know.
I really thought that the government was, America and our government was just like the best. I don't know, maybe the propaganda was just working on my dumb ass, because I was truly proud to be an American. And maybe that was just naive, I don't know. But now it's like I'm still grateful I grew up here, and not Pyongyang or something. But COVID just exposed us in so many ways, dude. And I feel like it's like a bunch of holes are getting popped in this balloon, and then there's just more holes getting popped now. It's like they're not getting covered up, if that makes any sense. That's kind of a stupid analogy. But yeah, like looking back, it's time to accept things have changed. I mean, we just have to adapt. That's what we do as humans, right? And I don't know. I really did think that some things would go back to normal, and maybe they will. Maybe time will tell. But, there's definitely things that are here to stay that we talked about today. And I'm a big believer in gratitude and not just viewing everything as a negative. I think it's so easy to do that. And it's so easy to make negative content. It's like that's always what does well. But, like, dude, at the end of the day, something as negative as COVID, you can pull out at least one positive, right? Whether that was, getting to spend more time with your family, or, a new hobby. For me, and I know a lot of people, like fitness and health became this huge priority that, prior to that was definitely not for me. And I'm grateful for that, dude. Like 5 years later, I'm still in the gym every day, and that started with COVID, right? And on top of that, nothing makes you appreciate the simple things in life more than when you lose them, when they get taken away from you. Like, there was a lot I took for granted prior to COVID that now, to this day, 5 years later, I'm still, grateful. And when I'm in that moment, I'm like, wow, like just simple conversations, going walks around, like just the simple things in life, bro, that were taken away from us. I think my perspective changed a bit because of COVID. It's like, wow, imagine we were still locked in the crib, how crazy that would be. But yeah, some people are still living like that, which is sad, bro. It's like I talked about this in the beginning. Like, you got to be grass maxing, bro. Get out of the crib. Don't let the internet influence you at this time where it's never been easier to be influenced, right? If that makes sense. And just as individuals, like, we can live.
Yeah, that's good advice. I would agree. If you don't have something already, try to find a hobby or something that gets you out. If you don't already, if you're just like find yourself at home, all the time or most of the time. There's things you can find. There's sports clubs. There's, just going to the gym. Um, there's photography, videography. There is obviously things like going to bars and as such with your friends, though. I would probably try to veer away and limit the alcohol intake, because that could have negative repercussions in the long run. But yeah, go watch movies, do some martial arts classes, or just go out and explore. Take a drive if you have a driver's license.
However we want. Just because society is going down the gutter doesn't mean that, we can't keep our heads above water and, keep our people's heads above water too. So, I don't know. There's positives in everything. The doomer thing, it's not what we do over here. Let me know what you guys think. I definitely miss some things like that changed during 2020. So comment those below. Thank you so much for watching, especially if you made it this far. I love you guys. I'll talk to you later. Peace.
Yeah, solid. Alright, let's see what else we've got to react to. So before we get that one started, so this one was Paulie Walnuts, the name of the channel. Alright, what do we have here? Death of mainstream.
There is more high quality content available than ever before, and yet most people feel like there is something missing. There was once a time where it felt like we were all on the same wavelength when it came to entertainment and pop culture. Everything felt more impactful. Movies were bigger, music spread further, famous people were actually famous, awards meant something, and if there was a shocking story in the news, it was impossible to miss. It was much easier to have your finger on the pulse of pop culture, and it created this bond that we had together as strangers. And we took it for granted, because now that that bond is gone, the world of entertainment, music, movies, shows, social media feels oversaturated, confusing, and dull. I bet most of you can relate to this. How many times these days does someone say to you, "Hey, did you hear about," or "Hey, did you see," and not only is your answer no, but you literally have no idea what they're.
Well, because before a lot of things were based off of TV and radio, and also just people naturally engaging each other in their day-to-day life. And like now you have a lot of people are just on YouTube. I am myself. And even with that, it's kind of debatable on, is it actually better than TV, right? Because originally the idea was that there were less adverts, it was more convenient, but that's not the case anymore, is it? I would argue that a lot of the time YouTube and these online platforms have more adverts than TV.
They're talking about. Life wasn't always like that. What we are missing today and for the past few years is a monoculture, which is essentially one culture that all Americans are connected to. Sometimes I even call it the death of mainstream, because nothing really feels mainstream anymore. Every decade had their own version of monoculture that was seemingly easily defined. But what will define the 2020s? Monoculture is dead. And for anyone watching this that's like a teenager or younger, it means.
I think he's putting too much value on this monoculture and mainstream thing. Because I think what he looks at as like the 80s and 90s, 70s, 60s, etc., these things are defined like later on in time, you know? Because during the 90s, people didn't think like, oh, this is like the 90s thing or whatever, you know, or during the 2000s. Now you have like 2000s core, you know, and people are talking about, like, I've seen like Frutica Aero aesthetics and stuff like that, and it's just like, you see, people kind of long for past times.
Nothing because they can't relate to that
Kind of going
experience.
on a
But
tangent
literally
there.
anyone older than that remembers their version of monoculture and probably misses it because it represents a much more simple time. Every generation before Gen Alpha had limited options for entertainment, and they thought it was a burden, flipping through TV channels saying, oh, there's nothing to watch. But now our options are infinite. 3.7 million YouTube videos uploaded every day, one streaming service with every song ever made, and 100,000 new songs being uploaded every day. Dozens of subscription services with thousands of movies and TV shows.
And also, it's easy to pay for things. So before, you would have to get your cable or satellite installed, and you'd have to create a payment plan. Now you just instantly pay.
A literal endless singular feed of short form videos that one can spend hours without realizing the time has passed. And despite having access to all of this content, a lot of us feel bored and disconnected from each other. Well, today I want to talk about that feeling. That feeling like something is missing. I believe it is tied to the death of monoculture. So let's dive into how we got here, where it went wrong, and actually why some of you might consider it to be a good thing. Entertainment has always evolved based on
partially
the
agree,
available
but
technology. The easier it is to consume, the less impactful it is. Movie theater ticket sales had their all-time peak in the US in 1946. Over 90 million weekly admissions were recorded, which means that about 60% of the US population went to go see a movie that year. Now, were movies objectively better in 1946? Absolutely not. There were just less of them, and less entertainment overall. The introduction of the television likely slowed down movie ticket sales, but opened up a whole new opportunity for entertainment. Cartoons, sitcoms, and of course, ads. You've probably never heard of Spokio, Truthfinder, or Been Verified, but they've definitely heard of you. These are data brokers. Their entire business model.
New season, new me.
New monthly rewards on Boxy Drop 2.
double ad is an unskippable.
Model is collecting
At
your
least one
personal
is
info
skippable.
and selling it to anyone willing to pay. They provide reports like this that have information about you, including your contact info, address, your relatives, and maybe even and sold
is promotion.
legally. Aura finds the data broker don't need to fill out you, and if something does happen, US based at the exact time it aired, or you missed it and had to wait for some limitations. You had to watch the show at the exact time it aired, or you missed it and had to wait for someone to tell you what happened the next day. Or even worse, you had to read this book called the TV Guide to figure out when they were going to air a rerun. Plus, there were only a few channels, so competition for attention was fierce for a rerun.
So, like, here's the thing: I do kind of wonder if there's a place for some sort of like a hybrid of like TV and the on-demand kind of like Netflix style system. Ooh, I don't know.
Plus, there were only a few channels, so competition for attention was fierce, but that also meant that millions of people were watching the same thing at the same time. With most households operating on 9-to-5 work schedules, the only time carved out to entertain yourself was between 7 and 10. This was known as prime time, and that's when the few good shows were on.
I feel like a lot of the TV networks are doing a really poor job, because what they can do, they can have their main like TV like rotor or whatever you call it, a schedule, but then you could make it so that everything is available, like, or most of the things that they show are available to stream after they've aired live, either in perpetuity or for some sort of limited time. And I know some of them do that, but I don't know. I feel like they're not really doing a good job of promoting that or marketing that, perhaps. because most people, I don't really hear many people going onto those TV networks and actually watching, streaming any of their content. Most people nowadays, especially the younger generations, they just go on YouTube or Netflix or, you know, HBO or whatever.
Families watch the same things together, and a new episode airing at 8 p.m. on a weeknight could dominate school hallways and office break rooms the next day. Worst case scenario, you could stay up for late night television where Letterman would catch you up on all your pop culture news. We were connected as humans, kind of operating on the same wavelength, and the entertainment added to our humanity. That is, unless you were entirely disinterested from the few available shows and movies, then you had no other options, your life sucked, and you were looking for other forms of entertainment like heroin. But at least back then, it didn't have fentanyl in it. But the way people consumed movies and television stayed relatively the same for decades. By the 1970s, 95% of households had a TV in it. And then in the 80s and 90s, there was a massive uptick in available entertainment, like an entire TV channel dedicated to showing music videos, or an entire channel dedicated to showing cartoons. But even with more niche options, primetime shows still dominated pop culture, and Americans still felt a sense of togetherness through a somewhat limited availability. Is music not hitting the same anymore? Doesn't it feel like you used to have a connection with others based on a shared love for the same music? Well, music had a similar permeating connection to monoculture with a few key differences. For most of the 20th century, music was somewhat of a luxury. Today, for $15 a month, you can get access to every song ever made and 100,000 new ones uploaded daily. $15 used to get you one album, and you had to take your happy ass to a record store and physically buy it. And if the album was in high enough demand, they might not actually have it. And that seems like a dumb thing to say, but in our modern culture, entertainment is never not available to you. These stores often had a strong sense of community and served as a gathering place for music fans. It wasn't unusual for artists to stop in and play mini concerts or sign albums before an appearance in a particular city. When people bought an album, they were now invested. They worked hard for that money. So to get the value back, they actually listened to the whole thing. They even tried to like the songs that they didn't initially like because they paid for it, which ultimately made them appreciate the artistry on a different depth. This uninterrupted focus on the music built a deeper connection from the fans to the artist. Fans had to imagine what their favorite musicians were like based on lyrics, a few interviews, and carefully staged photographs in magazines or posters on their wall. There was a mystique. Pop stars felt larger than life, almost like fictional characters, which is why people would pass out at the mere sight of Michael Jackson. Today we have countless interviews and endless access to all of their thoughts and opinions on social media. That mystery is gone. Artists are more accessible than ever, and because of that, they feel less special. And since music was basically a luxury, most people didn't have tons of disposable income to...
And the media knows this, but what they do, they play this stuff in a way where they try to make these people more relatable to the average person. So hence why they always have to have this sort of like social media persona.
Buy every release they wanted to listen to, so they typically resorted to listening to the radio or watching MTV. You couldn't just search your favorite Guns N' Roses song and get that instant gratification. You had to turn on MTV and just wait for it to come on, but in the meantime, you were consuming tons of other good songs that made you a more well-rounded music listener. And that was the same predicament for everyone. So at school dances, parties, or clubs, everyone felt connected because the song...
I feel like in a way before, people understood that TV and movies and all this stuff was a fantasy, whereas now there seems to be this obsession with grounding everything and creating this sort of like confusion of in wrestling there's a concept called kayfabe. So kayfabe is like where you try to script things and you try to make it look like certain wrestlers are the good guys and certain wrestlers are the bad guys, and you want people to boo the bad guys. And I feel like a lot of things are kind of like pop culture has kind of become like that.
songs that were being played were the ones that everyone had the same access to. A lot of club DJs today still mostly play music from the 2010s, and a lot of people wonder why they aren't playing more modern music. Like, are we all crippled by nostalgia? Well, not necessarily, but when you play music from the 2010s, you can kind of guarantee that everyone in the club is going to know those songs. Whereas today, everyone just listens to vastly different music. What's considered extremely popular and mainstream to you might literally not be considered extremely popular and mainstream to the person next to you. Today, we have unlimited access to every song ever made. When a new song or album drops,
Well, a lot of time has passed, and in that time, a lot of music has been released. So what happens is, when you're in a bar or a club environment, they're going to want to create a certain type of ambiance. Yeah, so they're going to need to they're going to want to play certain types of music that creates a certain type of atmosphere. So yeah, they're going to play things based on that, not which kind of time frame they're from. And of course, a lot of the DJs are from older generations, so that will play a factor into it as well.
it is just right there in your phone. You don't have to talk to anyone, don't have to buy it, don't have to wait. Most of the time, the artist is actually begging you to listen to it, or you accidentally found out about it. You didn't even want to discover it. Most people have resorted to just letting the algorithm decide what music to recommend.
Yeah, it's crazy, because before there was a time when you would have to go to a shop and actually pick up the music.
Recommend to them because it's easier than doing all.
Whether it was like a cassette tape or a CD, or even prior to that, even in the huge vinyls. And of course, you had different limitations with all those technologies. So with the cassette tapes, they'd be double-sided, and there's only quite a small amount of music or data that you can fit into it. Whereas when the CDs came out, that had a huge impact, because on the CD you could fit a full album comfortably, you know. And some artists would release like deluxe albums with some, maybe a music video or two or three, or they'd have like some sort of behind the scenes features, and they'd release like two CDs. They'll have like the main CD, and then they'll have like a bonus CD with some bonus content. Yeah. That was a big deal.
Of the effort I just talked about before. Combine this lack of mono connectivity through music, requiring absolutely no effort to get access to the music, as well as artists not having the star power due to overexposure, and surprise, surprise, music holds absolutely no value to the average casual listener. Once we entered the 2000s, the rapid advancement of
Well, like, think about it. So a lot of people now, they subscribe to streaming services. I would hazard a guess that it's probably a majority at this point. At least with the younger generations. You know, your kind of below 40s generations. What happens when you stop paying for those streaming services?
available technology caused a dominant monoculture to become more fragmented. TVs were becoming cheaper, bigger, and higher quality. The internet was getting faster, becoming easier to access and navigate. Cell phones were in everyone's pocket. We were becoming more connected than ever, but we didn't realize it was actually going to drive us further apart. In my opinion, 2000 to 2010 was a great sweet spot for pop culture. I would describe today's culture as everything all at once, and the early 2000s was the same, but it was slightly more manageable. Let's start simple. Movies. Here's a graph of every movie released per year around the world. You can see the quantity of movies released remained relatively the same from the early 1970s to the late 1990s, and it just started slowly ramping up in the 2000s before it exponentially exploded. Back then, there was a rhythm to it all. You'd get 2 or 3 massive blockbusters every summer, movies like Spider-Man, Pirates of the Caribbean, or The Dark Knight, which dominated culture culture for weeks. As fall and winter rolled in, you'd see smaller budget, more experimental, or just simple films rise to the surface. Movies like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, Little Miss Sunshine, Juno, and Requiem for a Dream. Everyone kind of knew what was coming and when it was coming, and that predictability created a shared sense of anticipation. Even smaller budget films had a shot at becoming massive, and the reason they had a shot was because people actually went to the theaters. Our last peak in movie theater ticket sales was in 2002 when 1.5 billion tickets were sold. But even if you didn't go to the theater, we had these really cool things called DVDs, where you could buy the movie that you missed and watch it at home. And if you didn't want to commit to buying it, no worries. You could rent the film for a few bucks by going to this magical place called Blockbuster. This is a store where you could essentially...
Have either of you ever used Bluetooth on an electric toothbrush? No. Right? A lot of people don't travel with them because they're too clunky, right?
Actually browse all...
I'm not sure if I've actually been to a cinema since COVID hit. No, I have. But not often, maybe like a few times. And that would have been quite some time ago, the last one. I'm just thinking when the last time might have been. A long time ago. Maybe like 2021.
all of the movies that you didn't get the chance to see. You would actually talk to the employee who worked there, and they would give you a recommendation or tell you what everyone else is renting. Sometimes a movie was in such high demand that all of their copies would be rented, and you couldn't get it. Imagine that. Imagine any form of entertainment being unavailable for you today. Scarcity created demand, and it made the film more exciting. It made you want to watch it more. Most of those crappy yet special early 2000s comedies were the perfect films to pick up at a blockbuster, and people loved that place. The company earned $5 billion in revenue in 2004. The point is that you and everyone around you had this physical connection with the entertainment and was actively using their brain to choose what they wanted to consume. TV still had a somewhat similar rhythm in the 2000s. Primetime was still valuable airtime. MTV was in its best era, in my opinion, having a plethora of terrible yet oddly captivating reality TV shows and experimental series, while still having their sister network, MTV2.
So that's what I noticed. 2010s, it kind of started to die. In 2000s, I would say TV was very much still alive, but 2010s, it started to die, and then again, another one of those things. It's funny because we're almost going full circle here, which is that a lot of things come back to the pandemic time. So since 2020, feels like it's basically been dead. At least when you compare what TV is now to what it was pre-pandemic.
Play music videos 24/7. It was one of the most versatile eras for mainstream music, with lyrical rap, crunk rap, rock, emo rock, country, pop, EDM, R&B, and countless other genres in a healthy rotation on MTV and the radio. It was just on the cusp of being overwhelming, but having it all contained on MTV and VH1 made it still manageable to keep up with. Kids were absolutely consumed by Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, and Cartoon Network, which were three separate networks that each had 2 to 3 shows worth paying attention to in their respective eras. We still had a healthy separation between our personal lives and our school and work life from 9 to 5, only entertaining ourselves lightly in the morning and in the evenings. We didn't have a phone to distract us from literally every millisecond of boredom. The entertainment options still felt limited enough that you could feel like everyone around you was on the same wavelength. Plus, we were still at the mercy of knowing the schedule of when new shows were going to air. But that started to die when cable companies provided DVR capabilities. You could now record your favorite shows and movies and watch them later whenever you wanted. This was the beginning of the streaming service era takeover that so many...
Yeah, that was a game changer. When you can record TV and watch it back later, that was amazing when that came out.
People today loathe.
I think the first brand was TiVo.
Today, you may feel like you are not as connected to the culture because 1, less people are going to the theaters, and 2, the DVD and TV business has been demolished by streaming services like Netflix, Hulu, HBO Max, etc.
And it's strange, like now I remember TiVo, it's seemed to have lasted like 3 to 5 years, relatively short amount of time, and then it just kind of disappeared as it became kind of somewhat obsolete.
Being able to stream anything, anywhere, anytime, all while being alone in your room means there's no anticipation, no excitement, nobody to share the experience with, and therefore no real reason to watch, which is why you simply scroll and scroll through endless choices, waiting for something to magically grab your attention, waiting for something to give you a reason to watch, but it just never happens. On a lighter note, every now and again, we do have a monoculture moment. I think back to the Barbie movie where girls were excited to dress in all pink and drag their boyfriends to the theaters, only for the guys to immediately after drag their girls to see Oppenheimer, where I'm assuming many of them fell asleep. I think back to Squid Games, where it felt like everyone and their mother was blindsided by this dystopian critique of capitalism disguised as a up game show. As far as films go, it feels like it's only every couple of years where there is a moment that we are all in sync, when it used to be literally all year, every year. I can't even remember the last time music had a monoculture moment. I mean, sure, radio is still kind of relevant. TikTok made popular songs more popular, but there's so much music all over the place all the time that I don't even know what anybody's listening to anymore. For TV, Yellowstone, Severance, White Lotus, Love Island, I mean, they are extremely popular, but can we say everyone is watching those shows? Will those shows define this era? I bet there are a ton of you watching that are like, I didn't watch a single one of those shows. The irony of it all is that the death of a unified culture everyone seems to be feeling came with our pursuit to be more connected than ever before, because the adaptation of the internet and social media into our everyday lives was the nail in the coffin for monoculture. By the turn of the century, everyone with extra cash had a computer somewhere in the house. Our parents were using them to basically replace what the newspaper did for decades. As the desktops and internet connection got faster, we looked at forums, chatted through AOL Instant Messenger, played simple flash games on Newgrounds, and even bid on random antiques from eBay. Being connected to random people all over the world was beautiful. You were no longer limited to the thoughts, beliefs, and interests of those in your geographical location. The internet was still somewhat difficult to navigate. You know, there was a time when Google didn't have all the answers. You had to check other search engines like Yahoo and my favorite, Ask Jeeves, to find what you were looking for. Videos would take forever to load, the quality was often terrible, and sometimes just straight up didn't work. Using the internet kind of felt like exploring uncharted land. That friction, scarcity, and lack of instant gratification was what made it special. It was worth working for. Today, we just expect things to work. We demand convenience, and we are willing to give up our human autonomy for it. Initially, the entertainment industry as a whole saw the internet as a threat because of piracy. Suddenly, millions of people could download movies, music, and TV shows for free through networks like Napster, LimeWire, and torrent sites, completely bypassing traditional revenue models. Studios, labels, and networks feared the collapse of their business structures, as physical sales and TV deals were at the risk of being replaced. The internet
Chart. VHS. Ooh. So VHS kind of died 2003 to 2004. And 2006 it was fully dead. That's crazy. It's interesting how like you had like 5 years where DVDs were like kind of replaced VHS and kind of were selling more than even VHSs were. But yeah, that's crazy. What's interesting is you've got digital rentals and purchases as well, which is quite steady. So people are actually buying movies, but digitally. That's interesting.
Structures, as physical sales and TV deals were at the risk of being replaced. The internet stripped them of control, and for the first time, the consumer had the power to access content without paying a cent. From the consumer's perspective, the logic was simple. Why pay for something when you can get it for free instantly? Piracy wasn't just about being cheap, it was about convenience. Buying a CD or DVD meant going to a store, spending 10 to 20 bucks, and hoping you'd like the full album or movie. Then again, people didn't realize the nuanced value of the additional human experiences they got while consuming entertainment. All that driving to the store, talking to people, limited inventory, sitting on a sticky theater seat, that was all just considered to be an inconvenient cost to getting what you wanted. But you couldn't argue against the value that the internet brought to individuals. It gave everyone a voice, a platform, and endless options tailored exactly to their preferences. And that ramped up significantly in 2003 when MySpace became the first widely accepted platform for social media. By 2005, the platform had around 300 million users and had an estimated valuation of over $10 billion. The platform allowed people to share their personal passions and stories as individuals. If nobody in your real life aligned with your interests, you would be able to find a community of like-minded people online. People started calling random strangers on the internet their friends. They became invested in their lives.
Actually, MySpace was kind of cool in a way. It's a bit cringe in some ways, but it was kind of cool because it was very... you'd have a page and it would be very, very personalized. You can put a lot of media on it and you can kind of change it, but it's always there, if that makes sense, unless you choose to take it out. Obviously, nowadays Facebook has kind of taken its place, and you have other apps that have also kind of taken its place, and not like, like Instagram and the such. But yeah, it's kind of cool in a way.
Wanting to know what they were doing in their geographical location. Your connection to random people around the world started to make you disconnected from those physically around you. Slowly, the digital world began to feel more important than the physical one. As platforms evolved, first with Facebook, then Instagram, and eventually TikTok, the focus shifted even further away from a shared experience and towards personal branding. Algorithms were designed not to connect people as a whole, but to keep you personally engaged, feeding you content you already agreed with or found entertaining. The internet became less of a town square and more of an echo chamber, reflecting only your own tastes, beliefs, and biases back at you, just so you wouldn't click off the app. Social media stopped being about community and became a stage where everyone was the main character of their own story. It made individuals feel more powerful than ever, which could be considered a good thing, but it also created a cultural landscape more narcissistic, divisive, and isolated than any era in history. So the reason why movies, TV, YouTube, social media, and literally all other forms of entertainment don't feel the same is a combination of really complicated nuances. However, with a shift in mentality, you could look at all of this as a good thing. If you are a strong-minded individual, introverted, or just someone who doesn't really care about a sense of community and those around you, you are in the golden ages. For decades, if you didn't fit into the narrow lens of what the mainstream deemed valuable, if you didn't like the biggest pop star, or wear the right clothes, or relate to the 5 TV shows everyone else watched, you were invisible. You had nowhere to go. You were the weird kid, the quiet one, the one who didn't belong. But now, the internet gives you infinite options to find belonging, and literally any interest you may have, no matter how unique it is, chances are there is a niche community where someone like you isn't just accepted, you're celebrated. Do you like wolves eating watermelons? So do 61,000 other people. Do you like stapling bread to trees? So do 335,000 other people. Today, a girl who was once mocked in school for drawing anime characters in her notebook can become a full-time artist with a fan base of thousands or millions. A kid who was laughed at for making weird songs on his cracked BandLab app can go viral on TikTok and then chart on the Spotify Viral 50. A filmmaker with no connections and no budget can put their short film on YouTube and have it resonate with millions of people around the world. These stories were impossible in the monoculture era because the gatekeepers decided what was and what wasn't. Before the internet, independence was next to impossible, and today the gatekeepers have less power than ever. So maybe entertainment feels more chaotic, more overwhelming, and less special. Maybe we are no longer all connected under a simple, easy to navigate monoculture, but there is more opportunity than ever for a small independent creator to get a taste of that success. And for consumers, if you know what your interests are and do not let algorithms decide what you want to watch and are willing to do the tedious task to actively get outside of the echo chamber that these algorithms are trying to hold you in and find that one quality YouTuber or that one underrated Hulu series, then you are probably completely fine with today's entertainment climate. Build your own world. Who cares about community? This is your life. Now, I personally go back and forth on my feelings towards the death of monoculture. I don't personally feel drowned out in content. Since I have terrible movie and TV taste, I will watch just about anything as long as there is a decent premise for the plot. As far as music goes, I am totally willing to put in the grind to find my new favorite artist, and I'm actually one of those annoying people who kind of starts to dislike someone when they get more famous. So I actively look for underrated talent, and Spotify and social media makes that a million times easier and more convenient. But at the same time, I do miss that sense of monoculture. I play a lot of golf, and when I meet new people, I've had countless conversations that lead nowhere because we have absolutely nothing in common due to being stuck in totally different algorithmic echo chambers. Sometimes the golfers don't even watch golf, so I'm just like, how's the weather? And obviously I'm a creator, so I'm benefiting from a system that was created for me to succeed. And because of my feelings going back and forth, my channel is somewhat a reflection of the lack of and yearning for an entertainment monoculture. My YouTube channel is kind of like a 2000s MTV inspired hodgepodge of modern pop culture. Firstly, I'm reliable, posting every Monday at 3:15 p.m.
I think he's just promoting himself there. Yeah, interesting. Some things I agree with and disagree with. So that was Patrick CC. Right. Let's see. There's a few more I was thinking to react to.
So drinking is coming a lot.
Let's automatically start. That might be a bit long. All right, let's jump on this one. I'll just reset it.
Embrace it all with Arla Lacto
Also has an advert.
All the taste, easier to digest.
So drinking is coming a lot less common within Gen Z, and I want to talk about you guys about something interesting where more and more people are staying inside and less people are starting to go out. What's up, everybody? I'm a Marks Games, and I just want to say is that big inspiration of Polly Walnuts for this type of topic, because I watched his video and man, it gave me a lot of similar experiences to what I'm experiencing as I don't go out very often. So when I was younger, I was a lot more on the introvert side, where I did not really like to go out very often. I rarely left my house for the most part. All I did was just stay inside, play video games, hang out with some friends occasionally, but I didn't do anything crazy or out of the usual. You know, I didn't really go out any high school parties. I did not get all fucked up on shit or nothing. I just basically just stayed home and just chilled. After high school was over, I really did thought I would never go out and do like all the fun shit that a lot of people did in their 20s. But things did change a little bit and I became a lot more extroverted. But I will say this, I don't really go out because, one, I don't really care. Two, I don't really drink a lot of alcohol, like I said in the last video. I just don't care. And three, it's just like I find it all just a big waste of time. Like going out all the time just to get messed up and just to do a bunch of rebellious shit and you don't even have control of your body just does not sound very appealing to me. And the greatest part is, guys, I'm not really alone on this. There are a lot of men in general that do not like going out, and I can say this is I don't blame them. And also, dude, I also realize is that there's some people that do try to go out, that try to meet women and stuff, but for the most part, these types of women that these people try to go for when they go out, it really is just not a good investment because they're all for the streets for the most part, those people who like to party. Now, obviously, not all women that go out are like this, but like my times that I did go out, there were some that are just very toxic and very hostile. And for some reason, some of them even expect you to buy drinks for them just for simply talking to them. And that shit kind of blew my mind because I was not there to date or hook up. I was just there just to talk to people and see where it went. And what was kind of interesting too was that people did look at me a little bit weird because when I went in there, I went inside of a club just to get like a drink of water and just to talk to people. Now, obviously, a lot of people were very intoxicated and shit, and some of them were still really cool people, and I did have a fun time just socializing. But like at the end of the day, like I don't see how people do this as a everyday thing because it gets old very quickly. Now, one of the biggest reasons why a lot of men don't go out anymore is that like, you know, things are just really expensive now. Like the economy is bad and you know the dating market's all fucked up and just stuff like that. But like things are just not worth going out anymore and pursuing because most people who do go out will probably at least spend over $100 or more. And that kind of blows my mind because some people like just to be able to.
Yeah, the costs related to going out are insane. Whether you're just going to the cinema or a restaurant or doing a hobby, going to a bar, or God forbid, a club, the costs are insane. You know, you're looking at, if you're going to a bar or club, you're comfortably looking at like $100 US or, you know, 50 to 100 pounds, British pounds. You look at cinema, like what are the tickets now? Like $25 or something per head in major cities. It's crazy.
Socialize and just to have a chance to even get with somebody romantically is crazy. I know.
And all of this is a problem because the salaries haven't really kept up with the inflation. So the way it worked before is that you have inflation, but the salaries are going up at either the same level or a higher level. So you're constantly kind of, you never really feel like you're priced out of things. Whereas now what's happened is people are getting priced out of things because the salaries are just not going up or they're barely going up. I know people that have that work in, you know, whatever field they're in, and they're making exactly the same money that they were getting in 2020 or 2021, and they're still making it now. A lot of people.
The reason too that a lot of people just don't go out anymore, especially men, is that like there is.
I would say in 2020, 2021, there was, if you were in certain areas like coding, software development, like if you were in tech or in finance, that was like there were some areas like that where you would get a huge pay hike, and you got a lot of work from home as well, so you had very favorable contracts. But outside of that, and just those couple of years, it's not been great.
Absolutely no realistic communication skills anymore when it comes to romantic interest when going out to these events. It's a lot more easier to go out for a lot of people just to go out, have fun, and then a lot of them be on their fucking phones. A lot of them be just chilling, whatever. And it's nothing wrong with being on your phone, but being on your phone the whole time to kind of cope with going out is kind of crazy because I will say this. The other generations definitely handled this a bit better, where all you had to do was just enjoy the moment, and if you see all good vibes, that was it. If you did not enjoy or did not like it, you could just leave. It seems like nowadays there's a smaller minority of people that are just willing to go out just to not have a connection and have fun, and not to also flaunt for status or anything like that, because because there's a lot of people who do go out just to post on their little social media stories and shit, just to flex. And I find that very weird. Like, why the fuck do you care so much what people think that you want to go out and look like you have this amazing lifestyle? Like, to me, I never understood that whatsoever, but it does line deeply with super insecurity issues. Like, when I was 20 years old, I used to post everywhere I used to go on my Snapchat what I was doing. And now looking back, I just realized, yeah, my privacy is a little bit more important. And most of the time, these people don't actually care what you're doing or where you're at. Most of the time, they're just going to skip right over it anyway. So when it comes to going out, it's really nothing much special than anything else. Another reason why a lot of men or anyone else are not going out anymore is that, like, people just find it rather easier in the same exact thing by just staying home, either getting high or drunk, and then just partying at home because, one, it's safer. Two, it's just like easier to get home because you don't have to get an Uber home or anything like that. And just three, it's just like, yeah, it's just more like fun for some people. And there's a lot of people who don't like to go out with other people, meeting strangers. Sometimes it's best to do all this within your friend group, if you have some. Like, the closest thing I'll ever do to going out nowadays is that my buddies will come over, we'll get a beer pong table or something set up, and we'll play beer pong. Like, for me, I drink water when I play beer pong, so I just play the game with them sober while the rest of them are getting a little fucked up and drunk. And they respect the hella for it, too. And yes, a few times I have gotten drunk over beer pong willingly when I was younger, but I just don't like that feeling of not being able to control your body. Because there's one time I did something absolutely insane where I just felt like I was out of control, where I felt like I was like running around like in my apartment damn near unclothed. It was really embarrassing just to admit that, but we've all been there before, let's be real. I'm also extremely grateful that I was not really addicting to partying, because what really does happen to you when you party that hard all the time is that it makes you feel really groggy and tired. You're not getting good quality sleep, obviously, and you're obviously just not being productive at all with your life, like, in general. So it kind of puts everything at a halt. Like, it stalls every other thing, and it numbs all the problems that you have in that moment if you do it all the time. Another thing I've noticed why guys are not going out as much too is that I feel like it's just becoming very outdated. Like, there's other things that are better off in your time than just going out to party. And like, for me, I like to stay at home and make videos. I like to also just, you know, hang out with like people that just fucking actually give value to my life, and not just drink with people that just don't care about me. Because let's also be real, a lot of those people that you meet at bars and you just drink with, that you just vibe with only during that moment, it's basically a lot of it is convenience. And once that drinking hobby goes away, or you don't have anything in common with drinking, a lot of those friends tend to fade out. It's like a big giant convenience thing. It's really upsetting too, because there's a lot of people who think they have really good partners going out to drink, but once that shit is gone, it's just, man, it's just, they were never your friend to begin with. I think the best memories I've ever had was like literally just being at my house, just enjoying my time with my buddies, playing fucking Monopoly, watching animes like Demon Slayer or something like Tokyo Ghoul. I don't know why, it's just, I find that shit much more enjoyable and memorable than just going out and then not remembering half the things I did that night for the next day. It's just fucking, nah, dude. It just was not for me. It's not for a lot of people, and I think more people are also realizing that it's just not that fun anymore when it comes to this habit. Also, guys, did I ever tell you that when I did go out to have fun, I did enjoy it, and then I was like, oh man, this is great. I'm gonna go out to the same place next week and do it again. So I went ahead and did it next weekend, or tried to, and then come to find out that place was shot up and closed. And then I kind of realized how dangerous it can be sometimes, and it kind of was scary because I could have been the one shot up and dead or something if I was going out to that same location, because where I was at, it was like my hometown in Westport, which is a little shadier at night than I thought it was. Like, I knew it was shady, but I didn't know that people were getting shot up at nightclubs. Like, damn, man. Like, it was like Grand Theft Auto type of situation right there. Another experience I had, too, which was so weird, was I do find that drunk people while at these events are the most obnoxious motherfuckers ever. Like, I know you guys have dealt with somebody who was drunk while you're sober, but man, if you're just trying to go out, have fun, avoiding all the really drunk people is really annoying. annoying because a lot of these people try to get in your face and stuff. And of course, when you're intoxicated, you don't really care. But when you're not really drunk, like, fuck that, dude. And a lot of them, unfortunately, were like being super toxic, hostile. And there was this one chick I do remember, for some odd reason, was laughing in my face or of some kind because I was in her way or something. Like, I don't know why. I think she thought I was trying to approach her, but I wasn't. I was just walking and it happened to be in front of her. Like, it was such a weird
Yeah, with these environments, a lot of the time it's just people are just intoxicated.
fucking incident, but man, it was crazy. Now, a lot of men may not be going out to drink into a lot of bars and stuff, but I will say is that going out is still essentially worth it, but it's not for the bars or nightclubs or anything like that, like really generic, right? Going to concerts or even smaller local concerts, in my honest opinion, is where it's at if I were to go out, because I love music, right? I'm a huge music junkie and metalhead, and I listen to a lot of different subgenres in that genre and other genres sometimes, but bro, I remember last year going to see Dayseeker, right? They're not really essentially like metal, but they're like pop metal-ish with metalcore vibes slightly. And man, it was fucking awesome experiencing like just the amazing atmosphere and the music too. And no one was really getting fucked up or drunk because it's only for a couple hours. And I think it's perfect because some people can drink, but for the most part, no one was really getting hurt or nothing crazy like that. And no, people were safe too. And the coolest part was that just the amazing feeling you felt after the show. And then you just got to go home and just relax and go to bed. And then get to remember all the memories talking about it and shit. And even have the videos that you record on your phone if you got it. Now, concerts are obviously not very cheap, but I will say is if you just treat it every once in a while to like a couple times a year type of thing, like twice or 3 times a year, it really is like therapy for a lot of people, and I find it so much more satisfying than just going out with no purpose or no like just winging it for some reason. Music in general really does help the soul. And the last reason why I think a lot of people are not going out anymore, especially men, is just like people just don't want to get mistreated, because there's a lot of people who do get mistreated when they're going out, and a lot of people are just sick of it, and I understand that completely. Like, nothing's more annoying when you're going out to the bar or just doing whatever, just doing your thing, and then someone that's drunk just happens to fucking sock you in the face just because you wouldn't like do something for them. Like, obviously that's just an extreme example, but I've heard stories of shit like that happen, and I've also seen people at bars when they are drunk yell at people, be nasty drunks, and just cause a lot of fucking unnecessary chaos and tension, and it's just not fun for other people that just want to enjoy themselves, because that's not the reason why they want to go out. They just want to go out and chill. It is most definitely way better to just stay home and enjoy your peace and quiet than just to have some douchebag just ruin your whole night and vibe. No one likes that, and it's the most awkward feeling too, because it just never goes away after that. Anyways, guys, thank you guys so much for listening. What are you guys' thoughts about going out? Do you guys even go out? Do you guys even care? If you guys have any type of stories, feel free to let me know, because I'd definitely like to listen and hear about them. But man, I want to say this too, is thank you all guys so much for the recent support on the channel recently. We're hitting a little resurgence on the channel where more people are watching, and I find that amazing, because this channel was kind of struggling for a while, and I'm glad I'm able to be more
Yeah, I think the value proposition offered by a lot of the places where men would have gone in the past is just not great. In terms of nightlife, a big factor, if men are honest, a big factor is, at least for single men, is women as well, and there are issues with that as well. Yeah. And just a general culture change as well for men. But yeah, I think that will be it for my reactions for this time. It's been a pretty good stream. Let me know in the comments if there's anything that you'd want to see me react to in the future. And yeah, this is my first reaction stream. I'll see how things go, and perhaps I'll be back for another one. Join me again on the channel. As always, like and subscribe. See you in the next one.